Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video I thought I would be talking about some of the most important books that I've read this year. So these books necessarily doesn't have to have been published this year, but I have been reading them this year. So some old ones, some new ones. I think all of these are pretty new actually, but I don't know like if every one of these was released this year, but the most important books that I've read this year. And yeah, I have 6 books that I wanted to talk to you guys about. A lot of these books I've already been talking a lot about because they are really great books. But yeah, all of these books have a special place in my heart because they talk about something that is very important and really makes you think. So why not just get started right away? The first book I wanted to talk to you guys about is Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lo. So I read this kind of recently, this fall I believe, or late summer. And in here we follow Lily, who is growing up in San Francisco in 1950 in America and San Francisco. And I wanted to read this because the cover really drew me in. Also, it was set in San Francisco, which is one of my favorite cities in the entire world that I've been to. It just was really atmospheric for me to like go back there through this book. And we follow Lily, who is kind of trying to figure out her identity, who she is and who she wants to be in love with. So it is America in 1950s, and to be gay is not really safe at this time, at this point in history. And we follow Lily as she kind of realizes that she is gay and that she falls in love with someone. And it's just I thought it was really beautiful and important read about Lily, because you follow also like the world around her that are not okay with this. And there's one scene in here where she, you know, is trying to tell her parents about it, and she's also Chinese American. I think I didn't mention that, but she's trying to tell her family, and it's just heartbreaking how people are so not okay with it. And it's just really cruel and difficult at times to read, but I thought it was a really good book, and I think you all should read it if you haven't. I know a lot of people have read this because it's really popular, but it was just a really fascinating and super interesting book in my opinion, and I really want to read more of this author. I haven't seen any other books by her, but I really love this one. So definitely give it a try if you want something that's really important and heartbreaking to read. The next book is Salt to the Sea by Ruth Septis. I know I've been talking about this a lot, but I just needed to mention it in here because it was so freaking important, and it's just a really good book. This is in historical fiction, World War II historical fiction, and we follow a couple of teenagers that are all from different countries in Europe, and they're all trying, you know, to do the same thing, which is survive this war. And you know, all of these people, all these teenagers have a different history. They come from a different country. They all have their differences, but they come together as one because they have this one thing in common, and that is to survive this war and to overcome it. And you follow each and every one of these perspectives, and it's just really interesting and really heartbreaking, really sad, really difficult at times. But most of all, I would say it's very important to know because this has actually happened, and it's really just fascinating to read about it and to get a more better like understanding of it. It really is. I know there is a lot of books, World War II historical fiction out there, but this was my first one and I can't wait to read more. I have so many on my wish list that I've been eyeing, and I just can't wait to read them. But this was my first one and I did really enjoy it, and I thought it was really good, but also really sad and heartbreaking, and just, yeah, it gets you thinking. The next book I want to talk about is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. So I was amazed by this book when I first read it. We follow Nora, who is feeling pretty tired and pretty done with her life. She doesn't want to live anymore. She kind of feels done with it. And when she tries to take her own life, she ends up in the Midnight Library, which is like kind of like a magic library where she gets the opportunity to jump into books and to try out different lives. And in these different lives, she can like undo the things that she regrets. So she gets to try on different lives. Like one life, this would have happened if you didn't do that, or this could have happened if you did that instead of that. And she kind of gets to try out what would have happened if I didn't do that when I was 15, or if I did that instead. And it just really gets you thinking, because even if you had the perfect partner, even if you have all the friends in the world, that doesn't mean you're happy. And this really got me thinking that happiness comes from within, and I just thought it was a really interesting read. I know book jumping is kind of a common topic in fantasy books, at least, But this felt really real because it was kind of like she got to try out different lives and, you know, see if that made her happier. But like in the end it didn't. In the end that didn't make her happier, and happiness needs to come from within. And I thought it was a very nice message to people reading this. At least that's how I took the message, and I just thought it was a truly beautiful and inspirational book about Nora kind of trying to find happiness in this life. And Matt Haig is a beloved author. I really want to read more of his works. I know he's very famous, but this was definitely a really good book, and I can't wait to reread it because I've only read it once and it was just truly amazing. The next book I want to talk about is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. So in here we follow two sisters that grew up together in a black community, poor black community, and as they grow a little bit older, one of them moves away to live in a white world and one ends up living in a black world. And they have no contact whatsoever. They live a completely different life, one in a black world and one in a white world. Years later, their daughters end up meeting, not knowing who they are, but they end up meeting and they become really good friends, and then they discover all of this, that they have their family. And it's a really good book about race, identity, and just really like where you belong, where do you fit in. I really thought it was an important book. I didn't love this book, but I thought it was a really important read. That's why I wanted to include it in here. It was a very impactful story in my opinion, how these two sisters grew up together and then at the age of 16 they drift apart, and one comes off as white, living in a white world, and the other sister is still in a black community. And years later that their daughters accidentally meet and become really good friends and discover the secret. And it was a really impactful story, and I can't really explain it, but it was just really good and important, and I think you all should read it because I think it's really, I don't know, a really interesting concept, I think. And love the cover as well, and I've only read it once. I would love to reread it because maybe to get a better understanding of it. But a really impactful story about race, identity, where you belong, fit in. Like it's really good. The next book I want to talk about is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I recently finished this one and I loved it. I loved it so much more than I thought I would. I was really surprised. I know it's been all over for quite some time now, but I just read it and I was just amazed. I was amazed. So in here we follow Monique, who works at a magazine company, and she gets the opportunity to interview Evelyn Hugo, who is a really big former movie star all throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, a really amazing and really big movie star. And Evelyn Hugo has never really done interviews. She's never really wanting to do interviews before, but all of a sudden she wants to do it, and she asks specifically for Monique to do it, and they don't know each other. So Monique wonders, why me? And later you find out why. But she specifically asks for Monique to come and interview her. So it's a really big deal for Monique because she's trying, to become better in her career. She's really young and she gets this huge opportunity. So she gets home to Evelyn Hugo, and when she gets there, she finds out that Evelyn Hugo has other plans for this interview. But you do get to follow as Evelyn Hugo talks about her entire life story, all of her marriages, all of her movies, and how the movie industry was back then, what she had to do to get to the top. I thought it was such an important and inspirational read, how she has been through so much amazing things. Like, she's a movie star, amazing things, but it didn't come easy. It didn't come for nothing. She had to do a lot of sacrifices. She's been through a lot of shit as well. And it's really interesting to see how the movie industry was back then, really messed up. And I just thought it was a really cool and such a fascinating concept to just hear about her entire life story, and it's just such a good book. It's definitely one of my new favorite books of all time, which I didn't expect when I first started it. And you kind of get to follow as Evelyn realizes what's really important in life. It's not money, it's not fame, it's not all the movies you've done, it's being happy and healthy and in who you are and getting to love the person that you want to love. So it's such a beautiful and inspirational story, and I definitely recommend it if you haven't read it yet. I believe everyone has read this except me. I just read it, but if you haven't, please do, because I can't recommend this enough. The last book I want to talk about is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. So I'm not going to go into detail what this is about because I have like 5 million videos of this one, not even lying. But why I think this was such an important read is because I thought it really showed you what true love is really like and what true love is supposed to look like in comparison to what you think it is. I just thought it was a really beautiful book about realizing what true love really is and what true love really is supposed to look like in comparison to what you may think. And it was just really, really important. It was really sad. It made me cry. I don't cry at all, but it made me cry and just was, please read this. Please read it. I have a reading blog on it. I have so many videos on this. Just go read it. If you have read any of these, please let me know. If you also thought them were important, or if you are wanting to read any of these, please let me know. But yeah, that was it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in one of my next videos. Bye.